I'm Scott Farber. Our guest today, Professor Nils Romer, Interim Dean of the School of the Arts and Humanities and Rabin Professor of Holocaust Studies at the University of Texas at Dallas. I'm sure many of you recognize the professor from his podcasts we did together. And if you never saw them, Professor Nils is fascinating and worth your time to take a look. Professor, you're home. We're in the middle of a virus pandemic. Over 20,000 kids are waiting to be educated again in the fall at UT Dallas. How are we going to do this?
Yeah, we're all sitting still at home behind our desks, and we have done actually quite well, teaching all of the 30,000 students in that way after spring break. I mean, this all started to shift very quickly. While we were at spring break, we were told that we had 2 weeks' time to convert all of our existing classes into the online format. And we've just, made it to the end of the semester. And then we had to plan for the summer again. All summer classes are again online. And now we're readying ourselves for the fall, which will be a little bit of a different format. There will be online classes, there will be hybrid classes, there'll be traditional face-to-face classes. So it's more of a mix of things that we're trying to put together, a mixture of things that allows us to stay close to the core of how we deliver education, while at the same time ensuring that everyone is safe.
Let me ask you though, are all the professors prepared to be in classrooms again?
Well, not in person. I mean, some of us will be in classroom in person. Some of us will be in classroom just via remote, teaching.
Right.
And then some of us will also be sometimes in class with the students, but alternating. So all of our classrooms are now being outfitted with new cameras, so that if we have a big class, we can lecture to one half of that class, let's say on Mondays, and the other half is at home. And on Wednesdays, we're switching. But that those that are at home can watch simultaneously with the ones that are in front of us and can participate in the same experience.
Now, do you have any read on how the students are reacting? Do they want to be in the classroom again, or is there still that fear?
Well, it varies. And, President Benson was very clear in one of his emails that he sent out at the beginning of May that ideally we want all the students back on campus. That's who we are. It's a university that thrives on the population and the density and the energy. But at the same time, we want to make sure that everyone is safe, and we want to give people choices. So if students don't feel comfortable being in class, then they ought to have a way of being in class without, feeling that they're potentially endangering themselves. And these choices are very individual choices because they may also depend on, are they staying with their grandparents? Are they staying with someone whose immune system is jeopardized? And so, there's not one universal rule that you can apply to all.
And I know UTD in particular has a very large foreign population of students. Are they going to be able to even get back to the United States?
Really big challenge right now, because obviously in the midst of the pandemic, traveling had been impossible, embassies had closed down, and therefore many of the visas have not been processed as of now. So we're trying very hard, in particular for our international students that join us every year, to create opportunities for them to initially join us in online classes, and then to be able to phase out of those into face-to-face classes as soon as they're able. So we're trying our very best to be flexible so that they're not missing out on anything.
Now, you speak literally all over the world.
I do.
Are you still traveling?
Not at all. My last trip was in January, and I was actually to Paris, and it was a wonderful trip. But that was the last one. And then I think I organized one large international conference that took place at UT Dallas at the beginning of March. And it was just on the edge of time. Right. If that conference would have been a week later, we possibly would have already canceled it. And ever since, I've been, doing all the magic here in front of the screen, back and forth.
It's funny because I'm thinking about it as you're talking. I took my son with me on a trip just to Chicago area. And I remember this was in February. And I remember when we got to the airport, I was starting to see people wearing masks. but there was no fear yet. We were sitting on the plane and we're wondering, why are they all wearing masks now? And then I remember at O'Hare Airport in Chicago was mobbed, and we're sitting in the food court, bumped up against people eating. And, we look back on it and we go, how lucky were we?
Oh yeah, no,
You
very
know,
much.
so, when you think of it, it's amazing. Now you have family in Europe. How are they dealing with the pandemic? How
You
is it
know,
over there?
they're dealing with, with it the same like we do. I mean, comparatively speaking, they've been always a little bit, quote unquote, ahead of us. Europe got hit by the pandemic before we did. We've been enjoying, so to speak, the virtual interrelationship. We have, I have like daily video chats with my mother in particular. And Europe has, taken this as well as they could. I mean, what is interesting is every country went about it in its own way. But also in Europe, it would have been, possible over the last couple of months to travel. And so right now we're just waiting the travel restrictions within Europe to be lifted so that my sister can visit my mother again. So right now
Right.
they are in 2 different countries.
Right. Is the university prepared for a wave of illness again? Are they prepared to send everybody back home if need be?
I think we all always have to be prepared for that, and I think we take comfort in the fact that the first time around we were able to do this almost instantaneously within 2 weeks, which is, we are a big institution, and we are, people think about us in many ways, but normally not necessarily as an institution that move quickly and decisively and can, turn on a dime into a different direction. But I think we've shown that we've been able to do that. So if, God forbid, we have a second wave, then we're going to have to adjust again to the best of our abilities. We're trying already, along with many other universities, to plan as well as we can going into this. And many universities, including us, are now really thinking seriously about not returning to face-to-face teaching after Thanksgiving. So that in particular, if all of the students will have visited, their respective families, that they don't come back. So that they come back, but whatever they come back to will at that point be most likely online only, so that we are avoiding that otherwise really potentially hazardous moment when everyone would have been all over the place and then, to return to campus.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask you. As you're talking about your particular university, is this pretty much the norm around the country for schools now, do you think? What
I think
you guys are doing?
most universities are contemplating, so to speak, massaging the academic calendar a little bit, meaning they're starting earlier or they're finishing a little earlier. They're trying to move a little bit the needle there as much as they can. I mean, luckily, our calendar in Texas helps us in lots of ways. We start earlier than most East Coast universities do. Our classes begin already in August, and therefore we don't have that much left after Thanksgiving. We don't go all the way up until, the Christmas break. We're essentially, with most classes done always already at the beginning of December. So it's not that difficult for us to make that adjustment.
Now, switching gears completely, we had another tragedy in this country. A gentleman by the name of George Floyd. We've all seen it on TV where he lost his life at the hands of the police. And that has caused a lot of protesting through this country and some rioting and looting and whatnot. And those of us of a certain age remember the 1968 riots, especially in Chicago during a convention out there. How is this going to be taught, discussed, talked about at the universities, do you think? And what's going on today?
I mean, it's right now, obviously, we're in summer break, so there's less of that ongoing engagement. But, I think right now, again, President Benson came out with a very clear statement on Sunday, where he essentially, expressed, like many of us, were just bewildered and terrified and shocked and anguish and in pain to see our country in a situation like that. And I think, the fear is really that this is drawing on ongoing problems that we've had in this country. And I think in many ways, we're now unfortunately in a situation where between the pandemic and the large unemployment and the ongoing social inequality and racial tensions, we're like, in a really explosive environment that
Right.
we've got to work really hard to kind of bring that back again into bringing people into conversations with each other. But right now we're not really close to it, unfortunately.
Have any of the students come and talk to you yet about it? Are some of them, seeking advice? Are they scared, you think? Or
Well, I mean, remember again, they are right now not on campus, but I mean, we've been contacted by students who were very much also looking towards some kind of announcement, some kind of statement coming from the university, and they were happy when Benson sent this one out. And I know that our provost also emailed individual students who had asked, and so there's, I think all of this is, very painful, but also immensely disorienting, particularly if nowadays you rely on social media, and you can kind of, what you find there is of all kind of colors, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, the utterly made up, the false, which, I think, if anything, intensifies this sense of loss and of anguish right now, that there's not a clear guidance out there.
Well, Professor, we want to thank you for doing this today, and we're going to get back to you once school starts, and we'll kind of get an update on what's going on.
It was good talking to you again. Every time, pleasure. You too. Bye.
Be safe, man. Take care.
Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure you like and subscribe right here to our YouTube channel. And if you enjoyed, please share with your friends. And if you want to see our collection of thousands of stories told by the people who live them, please head on over to gbctv.net. Thanks so much.